All right. Well, YouTube got rid of the dislike button, so I guess it's finally time to get back to Limp Bizkit. Okay, I'm not sure how to get this started, so we're just gonna kind of get into it. So the last time that we uploaded a video about Limp Bizkit, we did a reaction to Break Stuff. I had heard it before, but Alice had not. Alice is not really the biggest new metal fan anyways, and our reaction to it was, to be honest, I mean, you guys called us out on it. We knew it wasn't gonna be a positive reaction. We knew that the whole video was kind of just gonna be taking shots at Limp Bizkit. And that wasn't really fair. That's not the kind of content that we really want to upload. That's not really even how we completely feel about the band either. All right, so I kind of want to talk about Limp Bizkit in general, but I really wanted to make this a bit of an album review as well. I want to do sort of like a good and the bad and the ugly, and I want to talk about how they still seem to miss the mark, even though they're totally aware of who they are as a band. So just talking about the good at first, I think all too often we kind of find it okay to just hate on Limp Bizkit just because that's what's cool to do in the metal scene, which is kind of ridiculous. You know, there's a lot of like infighting within new metal as well. You know, if you are a Limp Bizkit fan, or if you listen to Limp Bizkit nowadays, you get like called out for it. You get kind of gate kept out of the rest of the metal community for some reason, and I think that that's terrible. I think that that's completely uncalled for. And they even talk about that. They do it in a little bit of like a skit about halfway through, or like 3/4 of the way through the album. And they talk about how it's just kind of, they just mock it, right? How it's just kind of silly. And I think that we do need to give respect where respect is due. Now, I don't think anybody would say that Fred Durst is one of the most talented vocalists or most talented lyricists when it comes to like rapping and rhyming and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. Most of you guys have probably seen the Finn McKenty video talking about Fred Durst. And he put it out a couple of years back, maybe just a year back or so. But talking about like like how much of a marketing genius and a hype man, and really one of the better frontman of any bands Fred Durst really is, and how well he did everything and kind of cultivated the whole culture around his band and everything like that. And I think that that still is true to today. The first single that they put out off of this new album was called Dad Vibes. And I clicked on that one right away. I kind of wanted to see what direction they were going in, because I saw that they did a tour already this year. They had Spirit Box on their tour, and to be honest, I didn't even know that they were still around until that happened. I wasn't sure if they were doing anything, or if they were just you know, one of those bands that just plays the same old stuff over and over again, because that's what they're known for, and that they know that they can sell out arenas to do that, or, you know, sell out some sort of concert venue in order to do that. There's tons of bands that do that. No hate towards that, but I just didn't know what type of band they were. And then to see them actually putting out some new music was kind of cool. I was kind of interested in that, so I checked it out. And Dad Vibe is Dad Vibes, man. It's being self-aware. To me, I really feel, and I posted this on Twitter the other day. I said, you know, Fred Durst is the Adam Sandler of new metal, right? And what I mean by that is that they're both iconic in their own sort of way, right? I don't think anybody would ever say that either one of them's like the GOAT in their respective category, but they do their thing better than anybody else. Nobody can kind of copy what they do, right? If they did, they would be an obvious copy, and nobody would go for it. But they do their thing really, really well. The other thing that they do have in common as well is that the minute you start to critique them, then you get a bunch of the fans, the diehard fans, that come out of the woodworks to tell you how you're wrong. Your taste in music or comedy is obviously trash. There's no way that anybody could ever have a pair of ears and come up with the comments that you said, right? And that is also completely wrong, man. That is also completely wrong, right? That's completely uncalled for as well. There has to be some level of critique. And so talking about what Fred Durst does well, what Limp Bizkit does well. So, I mean, first off, I mean, Wes Borland, for instance, if anybody talks trash about that guy, as far as his ability to play the guitar, I don't think that they have I don't think that they're being honest, right? You can't be honest and critique what Wes Borland does on the guitar, right? So that's the first thing. And so what Limp Bizkit does well and better than anybody else is they make music to mosh to. Like that is what they do well. That's what Break Stuff is. That's what Nookie is. That's what Rollin', My Way, right? All those songs are great. They are all those songs are great, like stadium mosh songs, right? What they did is they made an environment where like where the jocks and athletes could listen to metal, right? It was suddenly more acceptable for that. It wasn't just like the Thrasher kids anymore. It wasn't just like the rebels or whatever. It was now the jocks and the athletes, the skater kids that kind of went that direction. They could listen to metal. They had something to listen to. That's where and and I think they deserve credit for that for sure. And so to start this album off, I felt like they really started strong on that same wavelength, right? Of let's make music to mosh to, right? And so with Out of Style, Dirty Rotten Biscuit, Dad Vibes, um, that was it was what I kind of expected from a Limp Bizkit album, right? I'm not gonna say that any of those are my favorite songs of the year. They're not even my favorite songs of the month, but it was exactly what I expected from Limp Bizkit. That's what I would want to if I wanted to turn on a Limp Bizkit album. Those are the types of things that I'd want to hear, right? As far as the lyrics go, I mean, kind of clever at best, but he delivers the punchlines the way that he delivers the punchlines, and it's just a hype mix, right? I mean, I would be lying if I told you that I didn't have Break Stuff still on my workout playlist, right? So now as we go through the album, though, um, that's about as good as it gets, right? So the fourth song is "Turn It Up, Bitch," and that was just too cringe for me, to be honest. And then we get into a couple of songs back to back that I never understood why they did. Now, don't get me wrong, bands can do whatever they want to. They can put out whatever music they want to. But it's very interesting, and this is sort of like the bad, going into the bad of the album and the bad of Limp Bizkit in general. Because every single one of their albums has this, for me anyways, as somebody who enjoys some of their music and for certain reasons. I don't enjoy any of their soft stuff. None of it. I feel like some of those songs could be good songs in and of themselves, maybe on like an EP of themselves or something. I don't know. But for an album, it doesn't make sense, right? And the reason being is like Limp Bizkit puts on this persona and this attitude of like, I mean, it's in the lyrics too, right? It's "Don't mess with us, you can't mess with us, we're the best," all that sort of stuff. And then the sad songs come around, the slow songs come around, and it's just a complete 180, right? It's I like, don't get me wrong, Fred Durst is allowed to be sad, I get it, but it just doesn't have that same umph. It's not the same. It's not what I want to listen to when I listen to Limp Bizkit. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely off base on that one, but that's what's done it for me. When we did our first reaction on this channel to Limp Bizkit, Alice had never heard Break Stuff before, or at least she had never realized she heard Break Stuff before. Obviously, that song is huge, and she definitely heard it from time to time, but just didn't know who it was. She didn't know that that was Limp Bizkit, right? So we kind of made a goofy reaction of it too, just really kind of hating on it, knowing that we weren't going to give it really a good reaction, and that wasn't fair for us to do for any sort of song at all. And so it was especially not fair for that song. What we got was a lot in the comments, though, were different songs, different albums to check out and things. And to be honest, I had never really listened to any of their albums other than like the singles that they put out, right? And all of those were the same sort of tempo. They were the same. They all had the Break Stuff or Nookie sort of energy, right? But then I went through their albums because I was like, man, if I'm hating on this band just because like it's cool to hate on this band, I was like, there's got to be some really good stuff. So I started going through their albums. And they all of the albums are kind of the same for me, that there's one or two songs on each one that really has that good like Limp Bizkit feel to it, and then the rest just fall flat. And I couldn't go through a whole album and really enjoy it from start to finish, even in the least bit. I don't know, maybe I'll get hate for that as well, but that's just that. The rest of the album, a half the album, three quarters of the album, were just typically songs that I just didn't enjoy. Um, and so that, this album got me curious, right? It got me really excited because I felt like, as well with Adam Sandler understanding where his core audience is now, I feel like Fred Durst did the same thing with Dad Vibes, and he realized what is his core audience now, right? And it's all the same people that listened to him in the 90s and the 2000s, right? And we're all a bit older now. We're all dads and such, right? And that's the vibes that I got from it. Was stoked about it. Got into the slow songs, hated the slow songs. But what I was stoked about was it did actually get a little bit better as we went on. Barnacle, I actually really liked Barnacle. It was well, I liked parts of Barnacle. There's some screaming in there that's probably the best screaming I've ever heard him do. Best harsh vocals that I've ever heard him do. So that was one of the suggestions, was that we had to check out Limp Bizkit's cover of Faith. And so I checked that out almost right away. And it was cool. It was iconic because that was sort of one of the first times that we really heard like a punk goes pop sort of a style. Um, but to be honest, his his screaming, his harsh vocals were not great. It and I don't know, maybe I'll get hate for that too. Maybe people really like that, but I don't know. It left a lot to be desired for me. And or rather to have such a strong fan base. And I know you guys are typing in the comments right now as I speak, but just such a strong fan base that loves their stuff so unconditionally. I can't see it. I don't understand. I just don't. The stuff that they do, the new metal music to mosh to stuff is great. There's no denying that. They hit the nail on the head every single time. Um it's not the best lyrically, it's not the most complicated. Of course Wes Borland goes crazy every single time. Shout outs to that guy, because there's nothing I can critique on that. But it just wasn't none of their albums that they've put out have really been enough for me. But then, so after Barnacle goes into Empty Hole, I felt the same on that one, just too slow. And then Pill Popper, I did kind of like. I liked the idea behind that. Snacky Poo went straight back to 2002 Limp Bizkit, which was kind of neat. And then the last song was a little odd as well. But I don't know. I feel like they almost hit the mark. I feel like they almost hit the mark, and they're almost very self-aware um of who they are, what they are, and I respected them for that. But then they still put out the slow stuff. They put out their stuff with skits in it. I don't know. I felt like it was too much. It could have been condensed. It could have really been condensed. And I feel like that's the real reason why Limp Bizkit still sucks. like they put out, I think that's the tough part for us as music lovers, as metalheads, right? Is that it's hard to separate. It's hard to really give them respect when they still do this every single album. For me, when they're not doing the break stuff, nookie type songs, the rest of it's just a little subpar. But more importantly, it's not what I would listen to Limp Bizkit. And maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But in my opinion, that's why I feel people say Limp Bizkit sucks. It's not just because everybody thinks it's cool to say Limp Bizkit sucks, but because there's just not an album that anybody really enjoys, aside from the hardcore Limp Bizkit fans, that you can just listen to from start to finish. They don't have an iconic album like that in most cases. I mean, and this is coming from a guy who really enjoys stuff like Korn, Slipknot, System of a Down, um, Linkin Park, all of those bands, all of those sort of iconic new metal bands. I don't know. So let me know what you guys think about it, though. Am I too harsh on it? Is my musical taste just dumb? Is it ridiculous? Did you guys listen to it? Did you like it? Was it something that you have on repeat? Was it something that you only liked a couple of songs for? Or do you agree? Was it something that you saw and was kind of excited about because you wanted to see some of those just more of the good stuff, but then ended up coming out with the good, the bad, and the ugly all in one? And you probably will never listen to the album again, because that's kind of where I'm sitting on with this one. um yeah, let me know.